This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in North Carolina. I am here with the Garlick Group. Since 2011, they've been providing small businesses and nonprofits assistance with cybersecurity and compliance, digital transformation, business operations, and IT. I am joined with Andy Garlick, who is the CEO. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Andy.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. You were formally educated in the late 70s with an MBA, a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, a Master of Arts in Classical Literature. Your experience as a senior VP at multiple companies, including the WPP Group. You've spent years in advertising and media, finance. This has all led you really to owning your own consultancy company that you began nearly a dozen years ago. Share with me a little bit how this all began for you.
Absolutely. I started my career as a finance guy, and I was very fortunate to be the treasurer of the University of Detroit in Detroit, Michigan, a large private urban university. That's where I got my MBA, and as a very young man, had great responsibilities in managing funds and investments and debt and all kinds of things. In dealing with the banks, we needed to have lots of reporting, which didn't exist. Back then, it was the mainframe days. So I would write up a request and I'd send it down, and sometimes I'd get an answer, sometimes I wouldn't. I got kind of frustrated. So on my own arrogance, I suppose, I went to the library one afternoon with no background in technology. I checked out a book on structured COBOL theory. I read it over the weekend. I said, this makes perfect sense. I came in on Monday and I told them to give me a COBOL account and open the finance files to me. And for the next several years, I wrote little COBOL programs to get the information I needed, to deal with my job. That got me into the whole area of technology. And right about that time, the personal computers were starting to come on. And of course, the faculty wanted personal computers. So I ended up designing a local area network where we could have the computers talk to each other and then access the mainframe and just raise the whole technology level of the university. When I left the university, all of technology, both academic and administrative, reported to me. So I really became a tech guy. But I left the university to join an advertising agency as their controller. And they said very clearly when they hired me that they were interested in my finance skills, but they were more interested in the fact that I could build systems that people could actually use. And so that's what I did for 6 years at Campbell Ewald in Detroit. I did both finance and technology for about 4 years. And then I went to the board and I said, how about if I just do technology and you can beat me up every 2 years instead of every 30 days? Yeah, and we all laughed and they agreed. And so in 1990, I officially switched from a finance guy to a technology guy. From there, I was hired by Young and Rubicam to take over all of their technology in North America. In 97, was moved to New York to take a worldwide role. Y&R was purchased by WPP Group, a British conglomerate, was the largest advertising and marketing conglomerate in the world. And I was very fortunate that they brought me up into that parent company, where I did systems integration work and global technology work until about 2011. At that point, the recession of 2008 was still catching up with us, and there was large downsizing. I left the company and I said, I'm going to try and strike out on my own. So with all of this experience in both finance and technology, I have decided to work with very small companies. That's really my focus is small companies, not the big guys, where I can provide system integration, I can provide digital transformation, and then more recently, in the last 5 years, cybersecurity and cybersecurity compliance. And that's where my practice really is today.
Wow. That is a very full story. You got to be careful what book you read over a weekend. It can definitely change your life, right?
Exactly.
The IBM PC was introduced the year you were finishing college in 1981. The services you now provide, they were not mainstream yet. Yet today, probably, would you say every company relies on cyber technology of some type?
The large ones do, even the medium ones do. It's been my experience that the small companies, let's say companies under 25 employees, they have an awareness of cybersecurity, but they really don't know what to do with it, or how to protect themselves. So they may buy an antivirus program, but not much more than that. I find most of the small companies don't have firewalls. I find that most of the small companies don't even have networks. They're simply connecting to the internet through Wi-Fi, and they're doing it without a VPN program. So there's a lot of insecurity that exists within the small companies. The large companies are pretty good. And that's why the cyber criminals for the last few years have really been attacking the small companies. Because I could go after Chase and they've got millions of dollars, but I can't get in there. I can go after Bob's whatever, and Bob's insurance company, and I can steal from him because he doesn't really have the protections in place.
That is interesting. It makes a whole lot of sense. So basically, these small companies, they understand cyber technology, but they really don't have an awareness of cyber, basically security. Start out by educating the viewers out there. What is cybersecurity?
Well, there's a number of factors that go into it, particularly for a company. Technology is just simply one piece of it. So you could have antivirus running on all of your computers. You could have a firewall on your router. You could have logging, so that means that anytime an event happens on your computer, it's logged someplace so you can see what happened. But for most standard setting organizations and for most governmental agencies, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what the requirements are, that paperwork is as important as the technology. Do you have policies and procedures in place and do you make your employees change their passwords? Do you make your employees lock their computers? Do you make your employees not do anything outside the office unless there's a secure connection or whatever? Do you have policies that govern how you get rid of paper? You shred things. When you upgrade your computer, what do you do with the hard drive? There should be policies and procedures on how to deal with that. One real quick anecdote that I love to tell is that most small offices have a copy machine, right? And usually the copy machine is leased because that's the good way to pay for it. So every 3 years, the company comes in and they give you a new machine and they increase your lease by $20 and they take the old machine out. What most people don't realize is that everything you've ever copied is stored on the hard drive of that copy machine. So if you're copying payroll records or financial records or personal records, and that machine is taken out of your office, all of that information is taken with it, and it's available to be stolen. And so that's why these procedures and these policies and this paperwork is as important as the technology itself.
So basically, this hacking can be done even outside of the internet. Something as simple as a copy machine. You simply turn on the news, and it's common to hear increases in hacked and breaches in data. But many times you never even hear about these small companies because they're not mainstream, and you're going to hear about them. From common workplace sources, are these becoming a day-to-day issue even for small and medium-sized businesses? And is that really where your company comes in?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the past 3 years, about 75% of the successful attacks by cyber criminals have been against small companies because they know that it's easy to get in and get out. And if they do a number of them over the course of the week or over the course of the month, they can steal a good deal of money. It's not even just money. I mean, they're stealing information, and then they put that information for sale on the dark web. And so if you have access to the dark web, and I spend a lot of time explaining to people what the dark web is and how it works, you can make a lot of money just by stealing data and selling it around the world. What's interesting about that is, if I'm a cyber criminal, I don't even have to know technology anymore. I can go on the dark web and I can buy a piece of software that attacks your company and steals from it. And then I pay on the dark web the people that wrote the program like a percentage of whatever I recover, from the theft. So for 10% of my take, they do all the technology for me. I don't even have to be a cyber geek to be a cyber criminal these days.
Wow. I mean, this all begins with an audit on the company's computers, devices, and networks. You have your own proprietary software. Explain what takes place. I mean, does that share with me a little bit about what the first step would be in some of these companies?
Sure. So if many of the companies contact me because they're regulated by some governmental entity. So for example, in the state of New York, that's a big one. If you're a financial advisor, a financial planner, if you're an insurance agent, if you're a public adjuster, you have to be licensed by the state to do that. You're licensed by the Department of Financial Services. To get the license, you have to assert to the state that you comply with 23 very draconian regulations that they have governing cybersecurity. So to get them in compliance, companies will contact me and say, what do I have to do to comply? So I have a base package that has a number of steps in it. So first of all, we load a little piece of audit software on their network or their work group or their individual computers that doesn't look at their data. It looks at how everything is configured. Are there ports open that can be attacked? Are their passwords set correctly? And I get a large amount of data that I can put into a security report that says, based on your technology, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're doing wrong.
Interesting. So once an audit is done, they're basically left with a checklist of actions they can take to secure their environment. Written policies and procedures are drawn up. I mean, this is kind of compliance in a box for them, if you will.
Exactly. What I offer for a small business is compliance in a box. And if you look across the various areas where I really focus my attention, small dentists, small chiropractors, small psychologists are all required to comply with the HIPAA law. Small CPAs that are doing tax work have to comply with the IRS and Treasury regulations governing cybersecurity. And all of them are very similar. You have to do the annual audit. You have to have documented policies and procedures, and you have to have a plan in place to correct anything that comes up.
I mean, we have all browsed the World Wide Web, but obviously the dark web is something else that many of us don't even realize exists. I mean, that's obviously an important part of what you scan out there for folks. Quite different than the World Wide Web, is that correct?
Right. So if you think of the World Wide Web as a iceberg, and so you think of a normal iceberg, 2/3 of the iceberg is under the water. You only see like the top third of an iceberg, right? So the amount above the water is what you see as the World Wide Web. So wow. The layer below that we call the deep web, and that's not criminal. So for example, your company, may have a file server with payroll information on it and whatever. And it's controlled, but it's also, because it's a computer, it's attached to the web. And if you have the right codes and the right passwords, you can get into it. Below that, below the deep web, is what we call the dark web. And that is really developed originally by the Office of Naval Research so that spies could communicate with each other. But it became quickly taken over by the criminal community, because the great thing about the dark web, you call it great, is that there's absolute anonymity. You really can't trace what anybody does. And so if you know how to access it and how to use it, you can be quite the criminal. And so what are the things that we try and protect against? Or do you have, so if someone tries to attack you and get your data or get your bank account information or whatever, do you have the right technology in place to keep them out? And do you have the right procedures in place that if they happen to get in, how do we shut them down and how do we recover quickly? And that's what I do.
Definitely important for companies out there, small companies who work hard. That's their livelihood. Basically, that's the greatest asset they have is their company. Yet these cyber criminals can come in and really cause some great damage. I mean, tools to check compromised passwords, identity recovery services, installing firewalls. I mean, it seems that there's a lot of moving pieces in cybersecurity. I can see why small businesses struggle protecting themselves overall. I mean, your company provides more than just protection. You help small businesses harness the power of technology needed to achieve their business goals. Give us an overview of the IT support you're able to provide as well.
Sure. So in addition to this compliance in a box program, which is what we really do as our base, I also provide what's referred to as remote monitoring and management. So for a subscription fee, we put a little tiny program on their computers and their servers, and I have software that monitors what goes on 24/7. And if anything happens that's out of the unusual, I will get an alert. And I can say, all right, this is not something that we have to worry about, or this is something that we do have to worry about. And so with that service, they also get industrial strength antivirus. They get industrial strength web security, so that they won't be going to any bad websites. They get me as their chief information security officer. So if they have any questions, they can call me up. I also provide, if they're interested, if they want a firewall, I do resell some products, and I'm happy to install them or whatever. But I'm also happy to work with their IT providers, to increase their protection.
Wow, that is fantastic. And you consult with small business and mid-sized companies, yet nonprofit assistance has always been a big part of how you serve the public. Has that been important for you to include that sector?
Yeah, I do include that sector. The biggest problem, even for the small businesses and especially for the nonprofits, is they don't have, or they don't allocate the resources to these kinds of things. So if you have a nonprofit who's barely surviving as it is, are they going to pay X number of dollars per computer to secure themselves? And I do provide discounts for nonprofits. The other thing that I do for nonprofits from a consulting standpoint, because of my interesting and strange background, you mentioned some of it at the beginning. I'm also a trained fundraiser, and I have a certificate in fundraising from the Institute of Philanthropy. And I've done a lot of work in board strategy, board development, business plan writing, and fundraising for nonprofits, and then help them find the resources to provide the level of technology and security they need. Early on, before the security business became the majority part of my business, I was doing a lot of digital transformation and system integration. So, small companies who need an accounting system or need an information system or need a human resource system, and how do we get it to talk to each other, and how do we use that to leverage the value of your company to make money. So that's another piece of my business, but not as big as the cybersecurity right now, because everyone is concerned about cybersecurity, whether they can afford it now or not. They are concerned about it.
Excellent. I mean, from business operations to fundraising and everything in between, you have served on many boards. You've been recognized as a powerful advocate, not only for nonprofits and business, but also just for the family. We are definitely honored to introduce you and share your story out there. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see on their website is basically more about this company and how they can keep you safe. Large companies out there, they have in-house basically support that can help them. It's the small companies that these cyber criminals are able to really target because they know you're not protected. You need someone in your corner, a professional who knows all the ins and outs of not only the World Wide Web, but like he says, the dark web that is much larger than many of us realize. You can learn more about Andy's vast experience. Contact them today for a complimentary consultation. Once again, that is the Garlick Group, since 2011, providing small businesses and nonprofits assistance with cybersecurity and compliance, digital transformation, business operations, and IT support. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.